Oh, here's one with you in it. Okay.
Here hey, there we go. All right.
Awesome. Okay, let's see.
All right, and you're let's see.
I guess just maximize. All right. So you can 100% hear us now?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, really loud.
You don't mind us like recording for like notes and stuff, right? Is that okay?
That's absolutely okay. I mean, I'm trying to live stream it right now too, which I think, but I'm not sure. I think it's going out to my Facebook page.
Oh, it said, okay, it said I need permission to record.
Well, it's recording on this end, so I can just send you this.
Yeah, if you could just send it, yeah, that's fine too. Cool.
Or if you have some other, like, I use screencasts sometimes to record. Do you have anything like that that you use?
Yeah, no, we'll just do what we did last time. If you could send it, yeah, that would be good. Because I'll go over and like annotate and like whatnot.
Did you guys get the PDF I just sent over?
Yeah, I did get it. Let's see.
I'm sure you have not had time to read it because it was really long.
Yeah, I got it.
So it was something that I wrote back in 1996, I think for my brother, but I'm not sure. And it details all of what I'm about to talk to you guys about. So it may have all of the notes that you actually need by the end of this.
Wow.
Is there anything you guys want to say or ask before I kind of launch into what I did and how I did it?
Not particularly. I guess we really just want to know how you do it. I mean, you talked about tax deeds and stuff, and I've never heard of that type of investing before. So that's what really spiked my curiosity, was how that's done. So yeah, I mean, you can say, you know.
So, and it's good, I think, maybe that you haven't heard of tax deeds, because it still is kind of it's not as well known as some of the other investment strategies. There's a lot more competition in it now than when I started, which was in 1984. And so I apologize. I tried to set up a Facebook room, and now everybody wants to enter this room, and I don't know how to shut the room down.
You're fine.
Are you hearing it ping?
Yeah.
I don't know how to make it not do that.
Uh-oh.
You could, if it's on your phone, do you have an iPhone?
Yeah.
A ringer, if you turn the ringer off, the ringer switch.
Yeah, I did. It's my computer that's doing it.
Oh.
And I guess it's because I have iMessage, so maybe.
Everybody's just having these technical difficulties today.
And while I was live, I was telling everybody, please, while you guys were trying to get this other computer, I was like, please stop trying to get in the room. There's somebody in that room.
That's all right.
In 1984, my husband then was Don Lewis, and he was standing in line at the bank, and he overheard a couple of mortgage lenders talking about this mortgage that was in foreclosure. And it was a $20,000 mortgage. And one of them said, you know, I'd sell that thing for $2,000 just to get it off my books. And so he said, well, I might be interested in that. Could you give me the documentation on it? And since Don couldn't read or write above about a first grade level, he brought it to me and he said, this just sounds too good to be true. Figure out what's wrong with this, why this won't work. And so I read through it, and the house was worth about $40,000. The people had borrowed $20,000 as a first mortgage, and then they just stopped making their payments, and the bank didn't want to foreclose against them because the banks don't want to be the bad guy. And so a lot of times they'll just write it off for pennies on the dollar in order to get it off their books, because their ability to do lending is based upon them having all of these good performing loans, and it makes them look bad if they don't. So we paid $2,000 for it and went back to the owners and said, look, we got your $20,000 mortgage for $2,000. So we could lower your payments down to, you know, like half of what you're paying now, and you guys could keep your home. And they still refused to make their payments. So, yeah. So we ended up foreclosing on the loan, and through a whole different series of circumstances, we sold it, and we made like over $20,000 when it sold for the unpaid mortgage. And so I started going around to every bank in 5 counties around me and saying, do you have delinquent mortgages that I can sell? And they thought I was crazy in 1984 because nobody had ever heard of that. And they were really concerned at the time about sharing that kind of information with an outsider, but I proved to them that I was going to keep their secrets for them and not do anything until I had actually purchased the loans. And then it was because of doing all of those, I bought a bunch of them and did the same thing over and over and over again. So the way that works is the people can either pay you a reduced amount and they still have to pay off the $20,000, even though I only paid $2,000 for it. If they don't do that, then you can foreclose the loan and it goes up onto the what they call the courthouse steps, which literally are the courthouse steps in a lot of places, where they will then have an auction and people like me, investors, will all come and bid. So let's say this house was worth $40,000. There's $20,000 owed. Some other investor decides he's going to pay $30,000 for the loan or for the property. Then I get my $20,000 back. If there's any other liens or judgments, then those are satisfied by the extra $10,000. And if there are no other liens or judgments, then it would go back to the owner. But that's one thing that I didn't even put in the letter that I sent to you. A lot of times the owners don't know that money exists. And so the county is required to just hold that money. And so there's another way you can make money, which is finding all of those people that didn't know they were owed money and saying, hey, I know you were owed $10,000 and for half of it, I'll show you how to get it. And so I've done a lot of that over the years, not a lot, but some of that over the years. That's not as easy as the tax deeds, which is where I'm going to go through most of this with you. So that was how we started, was buying and selling these mortgages and then hanging out at the tax collector's office all the time. I saw that they were having these other auctions on the steps, and these were called tax deed sales. So what happens is if you own a piece of property and you don't pay your property taxes, then every year the tax collector will auction off that bill. So I wonder if I can do a screen share here. I'm going to try.
Was this typed up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this
wow.
thing is like a walkthrough.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And so, whoops, this is the wrong one. I want this one. So are you seeing, are you seeing this one with a list of like auction starts and dates and such?
No, I'm not seeing that. I just see right now, I see your Zoom Facebook page.
Okay, I guess it's, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing that one and share the other one. Okay, here it is. So what I did this morning was I went to, and you can do this for any county or parish. Do they call them counties where you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the name of your county?
It's Wake County.
Wake County?
Yeah, Wake, W-A-K-E.
Yeah.
Wake County.
So if you type in Wake County tax deed sales, you'll get a page like this. Mine is Hillsborough County tax deed sales. And in our county, they actually list them online. So these are the auctions. Can you see these now with the auction dates?
Yeah.
So these are the ones that are coming up on April the 4th. And if you look at this top one here for 817 Ethel Street, so it says that the people they owe $1,808.42 in their taxes. So what that means is that for the past 3 years, they have not been paying their taxes on this property. And so there's another way you can make money. I don't do it, but a lot of people do. And they just buy those certificates. So every year the county needs their money. And so instead of them being the ones holding these people's bills that they're not paying, they auction off the certificate for that tax money. And so the way bidders bid on that, this is at $1,800. So it was probably what, about, I don't know, $600 per year or so, 800. They will auction it off based on who will accept the least amount of interest on the debt. And
Right.
so you'll start at 18% because that's the legal limit. And then somebody else will say, I'll take it for 17, another one, I'll take it for 10. So it usually comes down, back when I was doing it, it was around 12% that people would settle for. It's probably a lot less now because of all the competition. You just can't loan money and get 12% anymore. But
Right.
those people would then buy those different certificates, and they hold on to that certificate that they bought, and they get that amount of interest on it every year. And after that thing is 3 years old, they can go to the county and say, okay, I haven't been paid in 3 years. I want to call this property up for tax deed sale. And that's what these are. So once that third year back person has made that requirement of auctioning this property off for the tax deed sale, then
Right.
all of the tax certificate holders now get the opportunity to get paid off plus their interest. So all of them together on this Ethel property are going to be $1,800, a little over $1,800.
Wow.
Now what happens is on April the 8th of this year at 10 a.m., it used to be you had to go in person, but now there's so many of these things you can do online even, where I have registered and I could go down there and start bidding. And this property, what you want to find out is there any equity in this property? And so here they said that this property was sold in 2009 for $47,000. So there's probably some equity. And I look at that a little bit more closely than what I see. Tell me if you stop seeing the screen.
Oh yeah, no, we're seeing it just fine.
So it shows you a map of which property it is. It gives you the Google map that shows you where it is. You get the legal description, which you need to compare and make sure that it actually is the same legal description as what it says on the certificates, because sometimes it's not. And buyer beware.
Wow.
So this thing sold in 1998 for $26,000. And they sold it again in 98, but that was probably just because it's only $100. It's probably like they took it in one name and then decided to add somebody onto the deed or something. And then it sold again in 2009 for $47,000. So that would give me the idea that this is something that I want to go out and look at and see what's going on this. And it'll have the legal description down here, but again, you'll need to look up each one of these things, and you can do it with the OR book and page numbers, where I don't know if it'll bring it up right away. So there you're going to get the whole legal description, and what you'd want to be sure is that that entire legal description is the same as what you're buying at the tax deed sale, which was back here. So nowadays, because there's so many investors doing it, if I know that the property is worth $47,000, I always look at what the county says a property is worth. And actually, it didn't say that it was worth that. It said that's what she paid for it. So let me see what the county says it's worth. So the county says it's worth $24,459. I always treat that number as if that's all I'm going to get out of it. And that way, if you're making sure that when you're purchasing something, you are so far under market that you have to win, then you've made your money right there. And you don't have to worry about paying so much for something that you're never going to recover your money out of it. So I would look at that and think, okay, it's probably worth the $24,000. And I'll make a list of all of the properties that usually the day before or 2 days before, I'll go out and look at the properties and see whether or not that property is worth this opening bid amount. There's no way to know where that opening bid amount's going to go because you never know who's going to show up that day to bid against you. Some days I show up, there's nobody there, and some days I show up and it's like, you people are paying like retail plus.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you've shown up on days where there's nobody there, like you're the only one, you're just like throw your paddle up and it's sold.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's been some in that sheet that I sent you, there's some examples of some of those that were just really amazing wins. But there's now enough people in this that they are showing up and bidding on these things. And there's a lot of things that you need to figure out. And, there's no title insurance on this. So whatever you pay that day, you have to pay. And if you don't pay it by 4 o'clock that day, They won't allow you to bid anymore in that county, so you have to honor it, even if you find out you've made a mistake. And
Right.
a tax deed sale will wipe off almost anything. So if this person owed $30,000 to the bank, that $30,000 loan is going to disappear the day that this is purchased, because the bank is required to keep the taxes paid if the owner doesn't, so that they don't get wiped out. But there are a lot of things that survive a tax deed sale, and some of them can be enormous. Like somebody might have a $2 million IRS lien against them. And you need to know that before you put your money out there, because they have, the IRS, I think, has something like 3 or 4 months to come in and decide whether they want to release the property or not. And if they decide not to release it, then you're just out of luck.
How would we go about finding out about the liens? Like if they have a lien on the property?
That is absolutely the hardest part. So on this particular one, so I've clicked on there, I see that it's owned by Louis Laborda.
Mhm.
And I will then go over to all these controls are in my way here. So I'm like dragging stuff around.
Well, we really appreciate you doing this, so take your time.
Monroe County Clerk of Court. And it would be your county clerk of court.
Right.
Yeah. What you're going to want is the official records. And I don't think I put that in what I sent you. So the official records are where all of those liens are recorded. And the person's name was Laborda, is that right? Laborda, Lewis. I think I may have spelled the last name wrong.
Labor duh Lewis. That's how I would. Labor duh.
Yeah, late.
Yeah.
Yeah, Labrador.
Okay, and then you would search the records and it would bring up all of this stuff that somebody by name, and you know, if it's a John Smith, it's just like next, because you're never gonna suss out which ones actually are against this property. Over here, it has the legal description, but that even though this number here is not that legal description, it's still, because it's a judgment against the people, it still could be attaching to the property. It's
Right.
just, I know that a credit union mortgage doesn't matter, so I don't really care how much that comes to.
So if you see like a certified copy of court judgment, that basically means it's a lien in most. Okay.
So you've got like deed, mortgage, and then judgments. The judgments, the only ones you're going to care about are the ones that are not extinguished by a tax certificate. And you would need to find out, because I'm not an attorney. I can't advise you on which ones can and can't be extinguished, but I know that like IRS liens, any kind of US government lien, you know, like a VA mortgage, even though it's backed by the VA, it will still get wiped off. So that's not a problem.
Wow.
And the other ones that you have to worry about are things like where the people haven't been mowing their grass for 3 years and the county's been mowing it. Well, the county has been charging them for that, and the county like $100 a day. And so that doesn't go away either.
That's like HOA fees and stuff, right?
No, HOA fees will go away. It's just when the county fees.
Oh,
And that's like if there's no HOA, but they will still want to upkeep the community.
oh,
And you know how like guys will be up and down mowing people's yards.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they'll
yeah,
do,
yeah.
like, devil strips and all that.
oh, wow.
Yikes.
So look at this. It looks like there's been a domestic issue here, and that is typically what causes things like that, because you'd wonder, well, why aren't these people paying their taxes? They're so busy fighting each other over a divorce or something that they're not even paying. And
Oh,
that,
wow. I didn't realize
Crap.
it would tell you that. Holy cow.
Yeah.
and I, one of these, you can pull it up and look at it. I don't know that any of these are anything I care about.
So what would be a giant red flag for you if you were looking through on that list of things?
IRS liens, county or city liens, where the money is actually owed to the county or owed to the city. And it would probably be worth your while to consult with an attorney just to say, you know, this is, and find a real estate attorney and say, this is what I want to invest in. Can you give me a list of everybody I need to look for that would not be extinguished by a tax deed sale?
Okay.
Now, even though, let's say we go to that sale and there's other bidders there, and I'm going to stop sharing here. Let's say it goes up to $20,000. You have to pay in cash, usually by 4 p.m. that day.
Okay.
A lot of things where they're vacant lots, I've gotten them for $500, $600. So it's really been minor investments. In fact, my daughter, when she was, oh gosh, she was probably 12 when she first started investing. And by the time she was 15 or 15, she bought her first car, and it was a 1967 Mustang that was completely
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
because she was buying those little lots with her
So
allowance money.
So wait, I mean, I guess when you boil it down, you're buying a home for pennies on the dollar, and then you're just reselling it back into the market for that equity.
Right. So when you do buy a property at a tax deed sale, even though you can take possession of that right away, you can go up to the person's house and say, here's the deed, I own your house now. Sometimes they won't get out of it. And so you actually have to file an eviction, and it can take 90 days to get them out, and anywhere from, my evictions are really cheap because I've been working with the same guy forever. So I can do them for like $150, $200. But
If someone doesn't want to leave, would we have to like call the police, or is that done through like an attorney? Or
have you ever had to do
Like-
that? Like, has there ever been, because I feel like a lot of these houses are in areas that are so, so it's, it makes me wonder if, some of these people are just a little too adamant about staying in the house.
yeah, so that's why you would have to do an eviction to get them out. And it is a legal process. You go down, you file the paperwork, and you can do that yourself. I've done it myself. And it gives them, I think, 30 days to show that they have a written agreement with you to be in the house, which they do not. And then the judge will put them out. And then once the judge puts them out, what he does is he'll issue something called a writ of possession, and you'll take that to the sheriff. And then the sheriff will go and serve them with the writ. And the sheriff, you can go with the sheriff, and the sheriff will give them like, within 24 hours, if you don't have all your crap out, then I'm going to stand here on your front door and watch you carry it out to the street. And I have been there and done that. That's not fun because those people are not happy about that. But they've been living there for rent free forever, and so they're not happy when they actually have to make.
Do you get to see the insides of these houses? I mean, what if there's structural problems or something, or something that you'd have to deal with? I mean, let's just say that you buy the house and then you're like, okay, the person's moved out, we're ready to go, let's check it out. And you go in there and there's like wood rot and drywall missing. I mean, do you get to see that before you buy it?
The very worst example of that was, there was this house in this really nice little neighborhood, and I loved it. And I look at so many properties that sometimes I just drive by and look at it. And it was one of those where I was like, yep, that thing's worth, I don't know, 25,000 to me. And I thought surely I could sell it for 50,000.
Yeah.
And something, that little voice in my head said, you really need to go look in the front window and see what's going on there. I go up, and the first thing that I usually do is I look for signs that it looks like nobody lives there, like, trash is piled up and the yard's not cut, and their mail is like flooding out of the box because nobody's answering it. And so if I feel like it's safe, I'll go around to the side of the house and see if the power is on. Usually if the power is off, that means the people have moved out. If the power is off, then I'll start going around and looking in the windows if I can, or if it's clear that there's nobody. So sorry. No, there's not even a thing to get rid of.
That's okay.
We're not.
Well, There's no way to hang up on it or something, or is it?
There's nothing on my screen that's doing anything that I can go like, you need to stop this. I don't even know how it's tied to my computer.
I don't know. Is that Skype? Sounds like Skype.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've used. It's funny. You asked me earlier if we use Zoom, and like we never use Zoom, and so I feel like I'm like, like my parents come to me and they're like, how do I use this? I feel like I'm them.
So anyway, I couldn't see in any of the windows, so I tried the front door, and it was remarkable. The front door was open, and so I opened the front door, and do you know what a sinkhole is?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Holy crap!
The
No way.
whole inside of the house is like 2 stories down, gone.
What?
Nothing there, and yet this house was positioned right over the sinkhole where you could not tell it from anywhere outside the house. It was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did not buy that, because it would have cost more than the whole value of the house to have had to fill in.
Oh my God! So the whole thing caved in, and it was just, that's ridiculous. Wow. But so do you have to take it under your own accord to go look at these houses, or do they allow you to get a little tour of it before? Or I guess the person could be living there, so it's not like.
Right. There's often either that person is living there or vagrants have moved in there. And that's why, for me, it's really dangerous. I've had some fun times with some men that I've taken along with me just to scare the hell out of them. But things like, there was a hole in a fireplace and I stuck my hand and he's like, don't stick your hand in there. And I'm like, oh my God, it's got me.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's entirely on you to make sure your title is something that's you're going to be able to live with, that's going to actually wipe off everything. So you need to make sure there are things on there that can't be wiped off or not on there. You need to make sure that the property is the right property and that the entire legal description is right. So what happens sometimes is people might be on a 1-acre lot and they've got this beautiful home in the front, and then in the back, they've got a conservation area. And so what they'll do is cut their property in half so that the conservation area behind them is a separate parcel. And so you're thinking you're buying their house, but all you're getting is the swamp behind their house. And so that's why making sure that the legal description is accurate is so important. And then making sure that all of those issues that you're concerned about, as far as like, I don't care about dry rot or termites or any of those kinds of things, because I'm going to buy it so cheap that I'm going to be able to fix the recover it, but I can't fix something like sinkhole. Or there's been cases, the house that I live in, it looked fine from one side and the other side had apparently a hurricane had hurled a tree through.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
What?
Wow.
So do you ever I guess when you buy houses, do you rehab them, or do you so you do you fix them up and stuff, you don't just sell them as is?
Well, I do sometimes.
Okay.
As soon as I have title to it, I'll immediately offer it as a handyman special, because there's so many people out there that want to DIY and flip houses now. That was back in the 80s, but it is now. And you can mark it up to make a good enough profit for yourself to be in and out of it right away and not have to deal with that and deal with the new owners. But if I can't do that, then I'll rehab it. And I usually have my own. Do you guys do any of that kind of work yourselves? I know you do.
We do, yeah. And we also have friends that could do it for next to nothing too. So we would definitely be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The cost in it is getting it into something that people want to pay a lot for.
Yeah.
And the way that I sell things is on time. So as soon as I get something really fixed up and nice, then I'll put it on the market for whatever it is that I want to get out of it. But then what I'll tell them is, if you make 12 payments on time, then I will deed the house over to you and I'll hold the mortgage at anywhere from 12 to 18% for the rest of the balance of the life of the mortgage for 30 years. And so I've probably got somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 properties right now, but most of those properties are generating those monthly incomes. And so it's cash flow from that is what I use for reinvesting.
Yeah.
So then So the properties that you have right now, you're cash flowing the rent. So are most of those houses like paid off and stuff, and then you're just cash flowing on top of that? Or are you just collecting monthly rent from what you're already owed?
My father grew up, or I grew up with a father who would, as soon as he had a good gig, he'd go out and buy a new house and he'd buy new cars. And then he'd lose that gig and he'd have to sell the house and sell the cars because he didn't want to owe money to the bank. And so I grew up never wanting to owe money to the bank. So I never borrow money against any of these properties. I don't buy it if I can't pay cash for it. I don't fix it up if I can't pay cash for the fix up. And that way, I'm never sweating it. I'm never having to worry about whether or not the economy's going to tank or something's going to go crazy. Like COVID, people could stop paying their rent to me, and some of them have. Well, imagine if I was still having to pay the bank. That is not going to go well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's awesome. So then I guess, okay, like let's say you get a house for, I don't know, $1,500 or $2,000, and then it's worth 25,000 or 30,000. The person that would come in to buy it after you do a small rehab, you would then mortgage that out to them. So then you would cash flow on that 25, 30,000, but over an extended period of time to not only help them, but keep money consistently coming into you. That's really smart.
What's amazing to me is if you sell something to somebody where it's called rent to own. So they're renting it for a year and their payments are say $800 a month that they're going to be paying as rent. And then once they make their 12th payment, I tried to structure it so that their payments stay the same because we know, okay, they can pay $800 a month and we're going to do that. And I'll just make this a 30-year mortgage. So for the next 30 years, they're making these payments. What I have found is that people who are buying a property take better care of it and they want to improve it and make it nicer because it's going to be theirs. And I'd say probably 90% of the people I sell houses to never exercise their option. They either cannot make 12 payments in a row on time. And I have some of my people that from the 80s, they are still trying to make 12 payments in a row on time. So they are still tenants and I can still sell the properties out from under them if I wanted to. I've never done that. I've always let them keep, re-upping their try at it.
Keep the cash flow coming.
But meanwhile, they're taking much better care of it than if I was just renting it out.
So what do you think of like mortgage forbearance? Like, do you allow for that when you own these properties? Or, I mean, like, is that even something that's like in our hands, or is that something that's in like the bank's hands, like mortgage forbearance?
I don't know what you mean forbearance, like allowing them to not pay.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. What if they just decide not to pay you could just, like you just said, you could just sell it right out from under them, even though you wouldn't do that, right? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could.
Is that like your only option though? Is just to sell it from them? Or
I could say, look, your deal with me was that you had to make 12 payments on time, and you have made 8 payments on time, and never get past 8, and so I'm just going to foreclose, or not even foreclose. It's an eviction at that point. So would evict them just like a tenant eviction, which is a lot faster. That's the big difference between an eviction and a foreclosure. A foreclosure can take me a year. An eviction will take me usually 30 days, maybe 90 at the worst. And so the same thing goes with the mortgages, where that very small percentage who actually has become a mortgage. Then I had the same deal with them. They have a 3-day late notice, and some counties make you give them 30 days, but where I can get away with it, if you don't pay your payment by the 3rd day it's due, then there are some really hefty late fees that they have to pay, which gives them incentives to pay it on time. And it also gives me the ability to foreclose on them if I need to. And so if they continue, and I try to work with people, they have problems, they might lose their job or they have a spouse that's sick or whatever, and I'll let them get behind sometimes for 6 months or so, but it's like, okay, but you're gonna, at the end of the 6 months, you can make a payment and a half until you get caught back up. And
when COVID hit, did you like notice all of your tenants, like, were they all not paying rent, or was it like a fraction of them, or like, how did that go down?
I was so shocked because I thought as soon as they said you don't have to pay your rent during COVID, that everybody would stop paying.
Right.
But what I found was there was only maybe 3 or 4 out of all of those people that took advantage of that. And they were people I had trouble with before COVID. So
Right. Okay.
made it worse during that period of time. And they are first on my list to get out of the properties once I can do that. And I think we're getting close to that, where I can start filing on them.
Wow.
And they still owe that
insane.
money. Like if they like don't pay it, they still owe that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
And
what okay.
what you can do is get a default judgment against them. So let's say that they owed you $5,000 worth of back rent or back mortgage payments. When you get that judgment, like you saw on the page there, then you can get a default judgment against for whatever that dollar amount is. And then you go and re-register that down at the courthouse and in any other court where you think they may have moved. Like if they moved over to the next county over, you can go record it over there. And they can't buy or borrow anything until that's paid off. It follows them around as a bad mark on their credit until you get paid off.
That's crazy.
Holy cow.
So we could get started doing this
Today.
Holy crap. I don't know. There's a part of it like, I don't want to say I'm skeptical, but it definitely sounds a lot easier than most methods
we have a lot
seen,
of bad luck with our business ventures. We have a lot of bad luck. Like not like
well, it's like with every failure, it's you learn something new. You know, it's like with our landscaping business, we learned how to, organize things in a very logistical way on a large scale, as well as communicate with people and close deals and stuff. And so that really helped. And then, there's been a few other things that taught us a lot too. But then it's like we look at something like this and we're like, that's awesome. And then I don't know, it just sounds kind of, is it like as easy as you're saying? I mean, I know there's more of the back end of it where it's like you got to deal with people and you have to do all that, but like we're naturals at that. So
we can handle a lot of stress.
As far as the process goes, like it just that sounds awesome. Is it as awesome as it sounds?
When I started in 1984, I did it with $2,000. And by 1990, we had built it up to about $2 million. By 1997, we had built it up to somewhere between $5 and $6 million. And then, as you guys know, that's when I lost my husband and the conservatorship came in. And so I ended up losing almost everything during the conservatorship. And so since then, it has taken me this long, 23 years, to build it back to about $6 million. But I've done that while raising anywhere from $3 to $4 million a year for the sanctuary. So, even though it seems to have taken 23 years to rebuild it, it was because so much of my energy was spent trying to fund the cats during that period of time.
You're a hard worker, Carole. We respect it. That's insane. Wow. So
is a lot of research, and that's where you get killed, is if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't make
due diligence.
We do a lot of research before we dive into anything. So
so I mean, is this the only kind of real estate you've done, or have you ever like tried to do apartment buildings or like 4plexes or 10plexes or something like that, or are you just stuck to like this method?
I actually do several different things, but the tax deeds can be on all of those. So it's not just houses, it's vacant land, it's commercial buildings. I have bought an apartment building that way once, and bought a huge tract of land, 600 acres. And that's in the letter that I sent you. That was a win. And it sold for, there was a whole conversation about why it sold for what it did. It was worth way more money than that.
Wow. And that was just land, or that was like a building or something?
No, it was just land. 600 acres though. It was really
600 acres is insane. It's crazy.
So as far as like taxes go, like how do you avoid taxes on all the income that you produce? Like, I mean, do you just invest it back into real estate, or do you put it in the stock market?
You just keep rolling it over, right? For write-offs and stuff.
Okay.
That's everything, plow it right back in.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's what we figured, but
And the other thing that makes it difficult is you do all of this research, and yet the reason that I go and look at the properties like a day or two before the sale is because the vast majority of the ones that are any good are going to redeem. And they can, right up until the day of the sale, go in and pay their taxes. And all of that work that you did, doing all of that research and looking up all of those debts and trying to figure out what applies and what doesn't apply to this after a tax deed sale, all of that is down the tube. So in that letter that I sent, it shows that I only get about 3% of the properties that I look at. So that's like 3 out of 100 every time you're looking.
Wow.
We look at 20 a day. So
yeah, I mean, we love hard work, so we'll go look at 1,000 houses. But that just the fact that you can even do that that's insane. I mean, so when you
to be made there, I'm not good at working with people. I'm not a friendly person that loves chatting people up. But if you show up at somebody's house and they are, say, that house that we just looked at where there's definitely equity there, they owe $1,800. Could be they just don't have $1,800. So you could work with that person and say, look, I know you're about to lose your house tomorrow. I could loan you this money, $1,800 at 18%, and work out something whereby if they default on your loan, then at least you have that lien against the house and you may be able to recover money that way. So there's a lot of ways that you can work with people before the sale, because most of the investors like me do not have the time to, or the inclination to deal with people in those last throes of the situation.
yeah.
You might have an advance, or you might have an advantage.
Wow.
And the thing works for the mortgage foreclosure. So call around to the bank, see what kind of properties they have that they're foreclosing on.
Right.
There is a publication in Hillsborough County called the Hot Sheet. And so it's a company that actually goes and looks at all, or goes to all of the banks and gets all of that information in advance. And they put out twice a month a little booklet that they'll mail you if you're on their, it's like, I forget how much, $1,200 or something a year to subscribe. But they send you the list, and it's just like what you saw for the tax deed. It'll be the property address and the legal description, and you have to do all of the same kind of research. But there, what you're trying to make sure is that if you're buying a property for the mortgage that's owed, you want to make sure it's the first mortgage and not like a fourth mortgage on the property that's being foreclosed. And so you have to do the same research there to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll 100% do that. Do you ever buy houses all in the same county, or do you do it in different counties too? Because I feel like, after you've looked at so many houses in one county, unless there's just that many, it seems like over time, especially over the amount of years that you've been doing it, it would get kind of thin. I mean, unless it just keeps, holy crap, wow.
Yeah,
I bought in 5 different counties, but it's only because I've always bought in 5 different counties. It's not because there's a lack of stuff to do here in Hillsborough County. And each county has, its own little quirks and things that you need to know about. One of the things where I have been hurt the most in these investments is where the county has not done their job and recorded their lien. So I go down and do a title search to try and find out what are the liens and judgments, what we just showed you there. I would actually go down in person or pull up all of those documents and look at them. But when the county is owed $100 a day for mowing liens, but they haven't filed it in the court records, or they filed it wrong, where it's, they've got the owner's name right, but they've got the address wrong, or vice versa. And then when I get the property, then the county comes to me and says, okay, you owe all this mowing liens for the last 10 years on this property. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, you weren't in the public record. Because they're the county, they can just chat you around. And my attorney just got me out from an $80,000 lien that they hit me with that way, where they had no right to do it. But it's still just a hassle that you have to be aware of, that it's like speed traps in these little towns. They just, they know.
Well, at that point, I mean, if they try to pull something like that wasn't addressed in the first place, it's not, I mean, a lawyer could get you out of that easy, right? Because that just seems negligent.
It's just, you got to pay the lawyer, and, it can be expensive if they fight it. They never fight it for long because they know they don't have any real right. But unless they actually did record their lien, right?
Wow, no kidding. And then as far as doing more research and learning more about this, we're 100% going to read the PDF, and I'm going to scrape through it. But are there any other areas that you recommend for us to look into, or things that we should look at before we get into investing? What's your ideal, I guess, what's your ideal image for a house? Like when you go look for a house, what's like passable? And
what is the creme de la creme?
well, I mean, the creme de la creme are the ones where people usually go back and pay their stuff, right? So what's the sweet spot below that?
It's either that they will, because they are the best properties on there, that they will be able to redeem, or that's where the most competition is. People are looking for the easiest way out and the quickest, fastest money. And so I'm never going to be able to compete against those people. My niche has been something really unique to me because of who my friend was. So what I would do is go after all of the vacant lots that were zoned for mobile homes. And right. Those are going to be super cheap, you know, a few $100s for the lots. And then what I would do is go to my friend who ran a mobile home sales lot. And every year she would have like 4 or 5 models, just like with new cars. They put the models out there on the lot. People come and they buy the trailer, and then they actually get it from the manufacturer. They don't get the one that's sitting there on the lot. And so every year she's got to get new models. And so I would buy those old models each year for a huge discount from what they were originally being sold for, because you get them for, you know, she had a huge markup. And so what I would do is buy the little trailer lot and then put her mobile home on it. And then you'd have to put in a well and a septic tank. And, you know, the well would be, I don't know, $10,000. The septic tank would be $15,000. And you've got $60,000 for the mobile home, and you've got 1,000 or less that you paid for the lot. It turns out to be the least expensive thing. And then I would sell those. And so if you can find somebody who's in that business of selling mobile homes or selling used mobile homes, then that's and I don't know if mobile homes are a big thing where you live, but here in Florida, lots of them.
They're here.
They're here.
I mean, they're around. I mean, not like the area we live in is really nice, but towards Durham and stuff, and you know, Raleigh. Oh yeah, they exist.
And like those things, the things that are going to be the most lucrative are going to be the things that are the biggest risk that others don't want to screw with. So it's either going to be in really bad parts of the town where you're going to be taking your life in your hand to collect the rents, but you get it so cheap that it makes it worthwhile. Right. There have been situations where one was a gas station that had a leak underground. And so they have what they call a Superfund site where the state would then take over these properties and charge millions of dollars to clean them up, and they would assess that to the owner. And so what I did was I looked into, well, what are they doing when they do that? And they dig out the dirt and they have to go in there with like it's almost like a radar gun where you sniff the dirt with the radar gun to see how much fuel is still in the soil to make sure you got it all out. And so I taught myself how to do all of that. And that was one of the most lucrative things I ever did. It was a gas station that I got for $14,000. And I was able to sell it for way more than that after I cleaned it up, but I didn't have to go
So the gas station, same thing, tax deed thing, and they just weren't paying their stuff. No.
Do you take photos of the property like when you go to sell it, or like how do you? Because like I know they have like a lot of
posting it up on like Zillow or something.
Yeah, like I know a lot of real estate agents use that camera. It's like the $6,000 one that like takes like 3 images. So what now?
The 360 videos where you can like look around the room. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Would you like suggest we invest in one of those, or like just have someone else do it? Like take photos of the property?
I think we do take photos of the property, and we do put them on Zillow. My mother was my real estate operations manager for years, but she retired a couple of years ago. And so the person I have doing it now we just use the iPhone and go around, take pictures and take lots of pictures so that you can pretty much sell it from Zillow. People can, without even bothering you to go out and look at the property, they've pretty much seen it. And so just getting all of those kinds of images so that people can get a really good feel for it. She loves Zillow. That's been one of the best things ever as far as getting new tenants and new buyers.
Wow. That's awesome.
All right.
I would suggest investing in the 360 cameras. I have one and I use it for the cats all the time, but I never use it for the real estate. I did a couple of them, and what I found is people just don't get it. They don't realize you got to move your phone around like this to see in the room. And so,
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there, I mean, are there any other questions you have? Is there anything
trying
else
to
we
think.
need to know?
um,
Any crazy stories about tenants? And prep us, Carole. Like, what are we getting into?
yeah. So much of what I did before, and you ask about resources. I don't know of any. There probably are a lot. And I just was doing it before I needed to access anything like that. So I don't know who the good ones might be.
Mhm.
I would stay away from anything that is like, zero cash down or, some of these kinds of things. And you certainly don't want to do anything where you're borrowing money. That's headaches you never want to have. The way that I got accustomed or figured out what it was that could or couldn't survive a tax deed sale was by going down to the courthouse and actually pulling all of the files for quiet title suits. So after you purchase the property at a tax deed sale, even though you can go up and take possession of the property, you don't have what they call merchantable or clear title without doing something called a quiet title suit. And the quiet title suit is where you file a lawsuit down at the courthouse, and you will name the previous owner, and if there's any bank mortgages owed against it, or if there is an IRS lien or whoever it is that you found that has liens, you notify all those people saying, I bought this at a tax deed sale. Here's a copy of my deed. Tell me if you've got any interest in this property. Well, they have, they'll always try to say they have an interest in it, but they don't, because they got wiped out except for the IRS. And so you have to go through that suit, and it can take 60 to 90 days to do that. You can do those yourself, and I have done a gazillion of them, but now I just pay my attorney to do it because I don't have the time to be going down to the courthouse to do that. But you have to go through that process. And so it gives them the opportunity to come in, say whether or not they've got any kind of interest. The judge is going to tell them in just about every single case that they don't, except for the ones that survive tax deed sales. Then you have a title that you could actually sell the property to somebody else. And so the way that I learned what survived and didn't survive these quiet title suits was to go down to the courthouse and pull those files and actually read everything that the plaintiff said and everything that the defendant said and what the judges said. And then I would go sit in the courtroom and I would watch the judges rule on these things and see what kind of cases people made for it. And that was how I learned how to do it myself. So finding somebody, an attorney who is experienced in doing evictions, foreclosures, and quiet title suits is going to be critical to you if you don't want to be doing that work yourself. You can do it because it's called pro se. If you represent yourself, you don't have to have an attorney. And so for years and years and years, that's what I did. But I'm just too old for that anymore.
Right. So so yeah, we'll find a lawyer we can talk to and get a couple on the list and see what we can do.
Yeah. So we just look up real estate lawyers,
just a real estate.
Oh, okay. Shit.
And something you might do is when you look up your Wake County tax deed sales, go down there and ask them, when's your next tax deed sale? And just go and watch some of them, find out who the bidders are and see what kind of bidding competition you've got. That may make up your mind whether you do it in your county or the next county over. And so that can be that's another benefit of doing it in several counties. You'll find that there are a handful of people that are doing the same thing you'll be doing in all of those counties, but they can't be at all of those counties at once if they're on the same day. So that's how you might luck into something There was one case where it was a really good deal, and it was a situation where me and my primary competitor both missed the sale. And we both converged on the courthouse because we had the opportunity to go in and purchase it after the sale from the county because it went back to the county. And it was going to go to the first one of us that got up there, and she took the elevator and I ran up those stairs and got there ahead of her. And so sometimes something.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Here's
crazy.
another thing. A lot of times the counties do end up with properties, and so they'll end up with what they call lands available. And you can ask the county clerk to see a list of their lands available. And those are the things that nobody thought. There's probably a reason why 99% of those are there, but there may be some that have slipped through the cracks that it was just a case where nobody was there that day and nobody bothered to follow up.
So more often than not, I mean, when you do like a rehab on something, is it full on rehab, like crown molding and everything? Or, I mean, are you just fixing the necessities so that it passes code or whatever?
I want to put into fixing that thing up the absolute minimum. And the reason for that is when you go to sell it, even though we try to sell it on lease options and have people that really care about their properties, one thing you can be sure of is every time they leave, they will trash everything in that house. They will completely, they'll pour oil all over your new carpets. They will punch a hole in every single wall in the building. They will steal all the doors, steal all of the hardware off of the drawers, everything, just to make your life miserable. So you want to go into it as cheaply as you possibly can.
So more often than not, when you're dealing with these tax lien houses, or not tax deed houses, more often than not, you're dealing with people that are a bit difficult.
Yes.
I see. We had to deal with it.
I hate people. God.
Whereas there are other people who will pay more and get a better quality of client, but I don't want to have so much money tied up in one where I could have 10 problem people that, at least maybe 7 of them won't be as problematic.
So you actually think that it's better to mortgage out the remaining equity that you're owed by leasing it and cash flowing it?
Yeah, I do, because it gives me that constant income so that I never have to worry about things. Whereas if you're having to flip things, then you're really reliant on being able to draw your profit out fast and then put it back into something else. And that's it works for a lot of people. It's just not something that I have ever cared to do. I'd rather have that comfortable cushion across a number of different properties. And because here in Florida, a hurricane can come through and wipe out half. I don't want to. Right here around the sanctuary, I own a lot of trailers, and I'm just like, oh my God, there was a tornado that came down the street one day, and I just knew at the end of it, it was like, and there goes, I don't know, 10% of my portfolio probably, and didn't hit anywhere except for one tree out here. So thankfully it missed us. But
God dang.
You don't want to have a whole bunch of stuff right in the same spot if you have those kinds of issues.
So how did you learn how to rent out to people and I guess get the where do you get the paperwork to make sure you're safe when you're renting out? Because let's say somebody, like he was asking earlier, what if somebody doesn't make payments, or how do you get that from them?
I'd be happy to share with you my lease option agreements and my rental agreements, and you would just change the names and the.
Oh, that would be amazing.
They've worked for me. I can't advise you because I'm not an attorney as to whether or not you should take them to your attorney and see if they want to do something a little different, which they do.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be great just to have something to go off of. That would be awesome, because that would give me a better understanding. Like in the past, we've done projects for people and they didn't pay us, and then we had to go, do a lien or something like that. So I'm just thinking, is it much different in real estate, or is there just a different kind of process, or is it really the same thing? But I guess if you're leasing it, they don't own the house, so you're not going to put a lien.
Right.
So how do you? I don't know. Yeah, it'd be really cool if we could see your papers and stuff, because that would really help me understand how we'll stay protected while releasing them. Because we want to not only build our asset column, but we also want to, we also want to be able to cash flow and make income off them. And I think what you're doing is a fantastic idea. Yeah.
And
So
part of why I do it the way I do is because of my propensity for mobile homes. And it's really just about impossible for someone to get a mortgage from a bank on a mobile home. And so because of that, I end up being the mortgage holder because they just can't get it anywhere else. Whereas you may not see that if you're not buying mobile homes.
why is that? Is the bank just like not?
They don't like them. They don't like anything with wheels on it. It can roll right out the door.
That makes sense.
That's happened before.
Jeez. Yeah, actually that, you know what? Actually, that makes, imagine the liability. If they were paying mortgage on it and they just like hooked it up to an F-250 and rolled off. That's crazy.
Jesus Christ, that'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, it would be. I guess I don't really have any more questions.
I don't know.
I think you've answered everything pretty well. I'm excited and I'm curious to see how this goes. We definitely want to do our first property sometime soon, but don't want to rush into it because we got to do our due diligence and make sure we're not, screwing ourselves over. But yeah, I think that's it. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or tell us? Any secrets?
No, I really can't think of anything else. Just, the biggest thing is knowing what can or can't attach to that property after you get it that's going to make or break your deals.
Okay.
Carole, how did you like the video, the YouTube video?
Oh yeah.
The latest one.
I loved it. Oh my gosh.
I'm glad you liked it.
That's
My
good.
husband said, I could hear you laughing in the other room. I was laughing so hard about your snowboarding.
Yeah.
Well,
We knew you
that's
liked
dope.
the cat suits. We weren't messing around.
We were trying to get something a little bit more baggier, but the
Yeah.
spandex tight stuff was the only thing we could find.
Yeah,
so-
originally we were gonna get like zip up onesies, and then I saw these like tight spandex leopard suits online. I was like, that's it right there. That's perfect.
We didn't show it in the video, but we had people left and right like whistling at us, like saying
Oh,
we're
yeah.
sexy, like all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was insane.
Yeah.
Oh my
It
god,
was a lot more embarrassing than it showed in the video, but yeah, we had a
Yeah.
good time. So
that was
Yeah.
that was hilarious.
yeah.
Great job with the slow motion reactions of people to it. So
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I mean, we hope to work with you on some stuff in the future. That'd be super
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
And thank you so much for calling us and telling us about this. And
Yeah.
that makes me feel really happy and makes me feel awesome. Dude, hey, seriously, because I didn't know about this beforehand. I was like, this is how we can get into the real estate industry. That's awesome. Yeah.
Good.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah. Thank you, Carole.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go. We're probably gonna
Yeah.
grab lunch and chatter about this for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Thank
Read
you.
over this
We
stuff.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye, Carole.
All right, Carole. See ya. You have a good day.
you do.